Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we're diving headfirst into the shadowy world of cybersecurity to tackle a vulnerability that's as prevalent as it is perilous: SQL injection. If you think of a website or an app as a fortress holding valuable data, SQL injection is like finding a secret passage that lets attackers bypass all the guards and lock doors. Welcome to our deep dive into SQL injection, a critical web application security vulnerability. We're talking about a technique that can potentially expose your most sensitive information, from customer details to proprietary secrets. And the worst part, it often exploits the very code designed to protect your data. Today, we'll explore its types, prevention techniques, best practices, and the severe consequences it can have. We'll unravel the complexities, demystify the jargon, and by the end of this video you'll be well equipped to not only understand SQL injection but also to fortify your digital defenses against it. Let's start with the most common type: classic SQL injection. Imagine a simple login form. You enter your username and password, hit submit, and the website checks if those credentials match what's stored in its database. But what if someone, instead of entering their username, entered a carefully crafted snippet of SQL code? This malicious code could do things like bypass authentication entirely, giving the attacker access as if they were a legitimate user. Worse yet, they might be able to access information they shouldn't, potentially viewing, modifying, or even deleting sensitive data. Think of it like slipping a secret instruction into a messenger pigeon's pouch. It bypasses all the usual security checks and goes straight to the heart of the system. Classic SQL injection works because it exploits vulnerabilities in how a web application interacts with its database. If the application isn't carefully checking and sanitizing user inputs, it's essentially leaving the door wide open for these malicious SQL queries to slip through. It's a bit like leaving your diary unlocked and open on a park bench. Anyone could come along, read your private thoughts, and even scribble their own entries in the margins. Only in this case, the stakes are much higher than a few embarrassing teenage anecdotes. We're talking about potentially exposing personal information, financial records, or even trade secrets. And that's why understanding how to prevent classic SQL injection is absolutely crucial. Now let's delve into a more insidious form of this attack: blind SQL injection. Imagine the attacker is now in a darkened room, feeling their way around. They can't see what's there, but they can interact with it and observe the results. In blind SQL injection, the attacker doesn't get direct feedback from the database like they would in a classic attack. They don't see error messages or the results of their malicious queries. Instead, they have to rely on subtle clues, like how long it takes the website to respond or whether certain actions succeed or fail. It's a bit like playing a game of 20 questions with the database. The attacker asks a question, phrased as a malicious SQL query, and then observes the response time or the behavior of the application to deduce the answer. This makes blind SQL injection more challenging to pull off, but it's certainly not impossible. And because it's harder to detect, it can be even more dangerous, allowing attackers to stealthily extract information over time without raising any immediate red flags. But fear not, we'll get to how to protect yourself against this sneaky tactic too. Now let's talk about a specific type of blind SQL injection: time-based blind SQL injection. Remember that game of 20 questions I mentioned? Well, in this version, the attacker is paying very close attention to how long it takes the database to respond to their questions. They might inject code that forces the database to pause for a specific duration if certain conditions are met. For instance, if the first character of a password is A, the database might pause for 1 second. If it's B, 2 seconds, and so on. By carefully measuring these response times, the attacker can piece together information character by character, like a hacker version of Morse code. It's a slow and methodical process, but it allows them to extract data without relying on visible error messages or changes in the application's behavior. Think of it like a safecracker listening intently to the clicks of the tumblers as they slowly rotate the dial. Each click provides a tiny piece of information, guiding them closer to unlocking the treasure within. Time-based blind SQL injection requires patience and precision, but it can be a devastatingly effective way to breach even seemingly secure systems. Finally, let's unravel the last type of SQL injection for today: Boolean-based blind SQL injection. In this scenario, the attacker is still working in the dark, but instead of timing responses, they're looking for simple true or false answers from the database. They might inject SQL code that asks questions like, is the first character of the admin password A? If the injected code is structured correctly, the application might respond differently depending on whether the answer is true or false. Maybe the page loads slightly faster, a specific image appears, or a particular function works as expected. It's like flipping a light switch and seeing if the light turns on. Each flip provides a single bit of information, on or off, true or false. And by asking a series of carefully crafted questions, the attacker can gradually reveal sensitive data. Think of it like a game of Guess Who. The attacker asks yes or no questions about the characteristics of a hidden character, gradually narrowing down the possibilities until they can confidently identify their target. Boolean-based blind SQL injection works in a similar way, using true or false responses to unveil the secrets hidden within a database. From classic to blind, time-based to Boolean-based, we've journeyed through the treacherous landscape of SQL injection. We've seen how attackers exploit vulnerabilities, how they work in the shadows, and how they patiently piece together information to compromise even the most secure systems. But knowledge is power, and understanding these threats is the first step towards neutralizing them. By understanding and implementing these prevention techniques and best practices, you can safeguard your web applications from SQL injection attacks. Remember to sanitize user inputs, utilize parameterized queries, principle of least privilege, and keep your systems updated. Stay secure and keep learning. There's a whole world of cybersecurity out there to explore, from protecting against cross-site scripting and denial of service attacks, to understanding the latest encryption methods and ethical hacking techniques. Subscribe and join me on this exciting journey as we delve into the ever-evolving world of digital security.